Why do we spray $300 bottles of champagne on race car drivers? Why do we toast with it at weddings, baptize ships with it, and cannot imagine New Year's Eve without it? Here's what's strange. Champagne spent most of its history being considered a mistake. A dangerous, embarrassing mistake that nearly bankrupted the region that made it. The drink of winners started as the drink of losers. But before we pop this bottle of history open, quick favor. If you're curious about how the world's most celebratory drink became exactly that, hit that like button. It helps more people discover these hidden stories. Now let's go backwards. Today, champagne is synonymous with success. The global champagne market is estimated at over $6 billion. We associate it with luxury, achievement, celebration. Walk into any high-end restaurant, any victory celebration, any milestone moment, champagne is there. It's so tied to celebration that other sparkling wines literally cannot use the name. Prosecco, cava, sparkling wine, they all exist in champagne's shadow. But here's the question that should haunt you. Why champagne? Why not still wine? Why not beer or mead or literally any other beverage humanity has created? The answer requires us to go back. Way back. And what we'll discover is that champagne's journey to the top was never supposed to happen at all. Ready to see how accidental success looks? Let's rewind. If you watched a James Bond film in the 1960s, you saw 007 order champagne. If you opened a fashion magazine in the 1970s, champagne was sophistication in a glass. By the 1990s, hip-hop artists were name-dropping crystal in their lyrics. This wasn't an accident. This was the greatest marketing campaign in beverage history. After World War II, the Champagne region faced a crisis. They had the product, they had the tradition, but they needed to become essential to modern life. So they did something brilliant. They didn't just sell champagne, they sold moments. Think about it. When did champagne become the drink of choice for a wedding toast? The 1950s. When did Formula One podium start spraying champagne? The late 1960s, and it was purely promotional. When did New Year's Eve become impossible without champagne? Post-World War II marketing made that connection. The industry created rituals where none existed. They gave champagne to celebrities, placed it in films, advertised it as the drink of sophistication and success. By the 1980s, it worked. Champagne wasn't just a drink, it was a status symbol. But this raises an uncomfortable question. If champagne needed this much marketing to become the celebration drink, what was it before? The answer is going to surprise you. Let's go back further. In the 1800s, champagne had a reputation, but not the one you'd expect. It was considered frivolous, decadent, the drink of aristocrats and courtesans, not serious people. While Bordeaux wines were traded as investments and Burgundies were praised by connoisseurs, champagne was the party wine. Fun, yes. Respected? Not really. Here's what changed that. World War I, the Champagne region sits in northeastern France. During the First World War, it became a battlefield. The trenches of the Western Front ran straight through champagne vineyards. Reims, the capital of champagne production, was heavily bombed. But here's the twist. The champagne makers refused to leave. They moved production underground into their ancient cellars, some dating back to Roman times. They harvested grapes under artillery fire. They kept making champagne while bombs fell above them. Why? Because champagne had become a symbol of French resilience, of celebrating life in the face of death. Allied soldiers began associating champagne with victory, with survival, with the promise of going home. When they returned from the war, they brought that association with them. By the 1920s, champagne had transformed. It wasn't just for parties anymore, it was for triumph. The drink you open when you beat the odds. But even this doesn't explain where champagne came from. And that story ... That's where things get really strange. Here's what nobody tells you about champagne's origin. For the first 100 years of its existence, champagne makers were trying to get rid of the bubbles, Those bubbles? They were considered a defect, a sign of poor winemaking. And worse, they were dangerous. In many champagne cellars during the 1600s and 1700s, it was common to lose anywhere from 20 to 90% of bottles to spontaneous explosions. Workers had to wear iron masks, actual medieval-looking face protection, because shards of glass would explode outward with enough force to blind or kill them. The Champagne region was hemorrhaging money. Their wine was literally exploding faster than they could sell it. They were the laughingstock of the French wine industry, so where did those deadly bubbles come from? Let's talk about Dom Pérignon. You know the name, it's on one of the most expensive champagnes in the world. But here's what they don't tell you on the label. Dom Pérignon spent his entire life trying to stop wine from bubbling. Pierre Pérignon was a Benedictine monk and cellar master at the Abbey of Hautevillers from 1668 to 1715. He was tasked with making wine to support the abbey. But he had a problem, a geography problem. The Champagne region is cold. It's the northernmost wine region in France. When winter came, the fermentation in the wine barrels would stop. The yeast would go dormant. The wine seemed finished, but then spring would arrive. The cellars would warm up, and the yeast would wake up and start fermenting again inside the sealed bottles. This created carbon dioxide, pressure, bubbles, and eventually boom. Dom Pérignon tried everything to prevent this. He experimented with different bottling times, different sealing methods, different grape blends. He even tried using thicker bottles from England, which helped, but didn't solve the problem. He died in 1715 believing he had failed his life's work. Here's the tragic irony. The defect he couldn't fix eventually became the most valued characteristic in the wine world, but that transformation didn't happen overnight. It took a widow to change everything. Meet Barbara Ponsardin, better known as Veuve Clicquot, the widow Clicquot. In 1805, her husband died, leaving her a failing champagne business. She was 27 years old. Women weren't supposed to run businesses. The champagne industry was still struggling with its explosion problem. She did 3 revolutionary things. First, she invented the riddling table, a way to remove sediment from champagne without losing the bubbles. This made champagne clear instead of cloudy, more refined, more appealing. Second, she recognized something everyone else missed. People were starting to like the bubbles. Not as a defect, but as an experience, so she leaned into it. She perfected the secondary fermentation process instead of fighting it. Third, and most importantly, she marketed champagne as a luxury product for special occasions. She sent her champagne to royal courts across Europe. She made it exclusive. By the 1820s, champagne had gone from explosive failure to controlled luxury. But it still wasn't the drink of celebration yet. It was just expensive wine that happened to have bubbles. That final transformation from luxury product to celebration essential took another century of evolution and the marketing push we talked about earlier. Here's the mind-blowing part. Every time you pop a champagne bottle at a celebration, you're celebrating with the exact thing Dom Pérignon tried to eliminate, that pop sound. That's the pressure he spent decades trying to prevent, those bubbles. The flaw that almost bankrupted an entire region. The spraying foam, the explosion he wore an iron mask to avoid. We turned a production disaster into a sensory experience. We made a failure into a feature. And here's the deeper irony. Champagne only became the drink of celebration because the industry convinced us it was. There's nothing inherently celebratory about sparkling wine. It's not rarer than other wines. It's not more complex to make than many other beverages. The celebration isn't in the bottle. It's in the story we've been told about the bottle. So let's connect this circle. A monk tries to fix a flaw. He fails. A widow turns that flaw into a feature. War makes that feature symbolic. Marketing makes that symbol essential. And now, in 2025, we cannot imagine celebrating without the very thing that was once the problem. Every victory spray, every wedding toast, every New Year's countdown, they're all celebrating the success of an accident, the triumph of a mistake, the victory of the thing that wasn't supposed to exist. Maybe that's why champagne is the perfect celebration drink? Not because of marketing, but because its story mirrors every success story, something unexpected, something others said was wrong, something that nearly destroyed everything, becoming the defining characteristic that makes it irreplaceable. The bubbles rise because they were never supposed to be there in the first place, and that's exactly why we love them. So the next time you pop a champagne bottle, whether it's New Year's Eve, a wedding, or just because it's Friday and you survived the week, remember, you're drinking history's most successful failure. You're toasting with a mistake that became a symbol, a problem that became a triumph, a defect that became the definition of celebration itself. That's the hidden chapter of champagne. If this story changed how you see champagne forever, hit that like button and subscribe for more reverse histories that flip what you thought you knew upside down. Drop a comment and tell me, what everyday thing do you want me to unravel next? What story that we take for granted needs to be told backwards? And hey, if you learned something surprising today, share this with someone who loves champagne. Let them see their favorite drink in a completely new light. Thanks for going backwards with me. I'll see you in the next chapter.